Welcome to the Ghost of the Orange Bowl. I'm Jay Rao. Our guest is one of the most familiar voices in South Florida sports. For more than 50 years, he's been the public address announcer at University of Miami sporting events. You may have heard him at baseball games at Marklight Stadium. You may have heard him at the Orange Bowl for 18 seasons doing University of Miami football. He was also the PA announcer at University of Miami basketball games back at the old Miami Arena and the James L. Knight Center. You may even remember him as the original PA announcer for the Florida Marlins. He's also done work for the Florida Panthers. And to show you what a big deal he is, even has a milkshake named after him. Welcome to our show, Jay Rokeach. Jay, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jay. It's always a pleasure to join you, and I certainly appreciate the invitation to come down and talk a little bit of Hurricane athletics.
Oh, thank you so much. Jay, you grew up in actually Brooklyn. And tell us about how that shaped your life. Did you grow up playing sports? How did you become such a sports enthusiast?
Well, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and that's where I born and raised. And I certainly loved athletics, but I did not participate. I was a student manager for our high school basketball team. And I went to a high school, Franklin D. Roosevelt High School, first graduating class, brand new high school. So it was a wonderful experience. I loved high school and I loved growing up in Brooklyn. And at some point, I knew that I had to make a decision about going to a school, a four-year school, university. And I knew that I wanted to leave New York and go somewhere else. And back in the day, the high schools had so many students and guidance counselors had so much work to prepare transcripts and things like that, that they only allowed you to apply to 3 out-of-state schools. In other words, even though you were paying admission fees and application fees, they only would prepare your resume for 3 out-of-town schools. So back then in Brooklyn, I applied to Arizona State, I applied to Florida State, and I applied to Miami. They suggested that you apply to a school that you definitely thought you'd get into, a school that was 50-50 to get into, and a school where maybe if the admissions office made a mistake, they'd accept you by mistake and you could go to that school. Lo and behold, I was accepted to Arizona State. I was accepted to Miami, but I was not accepted to Florida State. And since Miami was a lot closer to Brooklyn than was Tempe, Arizona, that's the school that I chose. Never visited the campus, had never been to Florida, had never been to Miami. So in other words, back then, it isn't like it is today where kids visit college campuses and their moms and dads take them on these tours and things like that. Back then, you made a decision and you hoped it was the right one. I decided on Miami. So I guess I had an immediate dislike for Florida State as soon as that happened. And lo and behold, that's how I got to the UM. So I did not play sports in high school. I did work for our high school basketball team. And that's what's made me want to pursue doing something at the University of Miami besides from just being a student. So I came to Miami, and that was back, I want to say, in 1968. And I actually went to see Ron Godfrey, who was the basketball coach back in those days. And I wanted to see if they needed a student manager so that I could be involved. The reason why basketball was so attractive was because they had road trips to UCLA and Hawaii. And I said, that would be very nice to get involved with basketball and to have these trips and to be able to work and do something similar to my high school days. Basketball did not need anyone. They had enough managers on their roster and staff. So I left what was called the Armory, which is where they practice on campus.
Right.
I walked by the baseball field. I walked in. I introduced myself to Ron Fraser. I said he was the longtime baseball coach at the UM. And I asked him if he needed any student assistance. And he did. And about 30 minutes later, I was one of the team managers, and I was washing uniforms in the locker room. and that started a long and wonderful career working with Hurricane baseball.
Wow, you mentioned that you'd never been to Miami. You just chose the University of Miami, but you never actually visited here until you got here. What were your first impressions of South Florida as somebody from New York who had been in Brooklyn your whole life at that point? And all of a sudden, here you are, an 18-year-old kid in Miami. What was it like that?
Needless to say, it was amazing.
Yeah.
In other words, again, the warm weather was certainly an attraction. The beauty of Coral Gables was great, and I couldn't be more happy. In other words, having Coral Gables as my second home, and again, no regrets in all the years that this is the school that I lined up with, and I am very proud to call the Hurricanes and the University of Miami my alma mater.
You became kind of an institution at Mark Light Stadium, and I can say this from personal experience, having gone to games when I was a kid back in the 80s. You had a very unique delivery to your as a PA announcer, the way you would introduce a player, how you would pronounce their names. Where did you develop that? Was that just something that was very spontaneous? Like, for example, some of my favorite names were like Jose Trujillo and Julio Solis, I think was another name.
We had a catcher whose name was Nelson Santovenia.
Sure.
Again, no, there's no really thought given to it. It's just, I try to do something that's a little bit unusual that might catch the fans' ears. And eventually, maybe it's something that will catch on with the fans, so that when I say for the Hurricanes, now batting the second baseman, Jose Trujillo, hopefully lots of folks in the stands are joining in with me and saying Jose Trujillo. And then, thankfully, I had always wanted to be the Marlins' first ever public address announcer.
Right.
When Major League Baseball came to South Florida in 1992 or 93.
Yeah.
And they had Benito Santiago.
Right.
And that was a very popular name
Right.
with the Marlins, as was Jeff Conine.
Right.
So again, I really don't give it much thought. I don't stay up nights thinking of these things. It's just something that when I look at a roster, I try to find a name or two that might project to being something that people think, oh, that's cool the way he says that name.
Well, I was always a fan of Kirk Doolum.
There you go. There you go. So you have more examples than I can actually remember. And Kurt was certainly a unique individual,
Right.
a good third baseman for us. And I did accentuate his name, as you said, Kurt Doolum. So I think he liked it, and I'm glad some folks remember it.
Right. For somebody who's never been to Mark Light Stadium, how would you describe the atmosphere there? I mean, for if you were to describe it to somebody who's never been there before.
First of all, we go back to the Ron Fraser days. For those people that don't know Ron Fraser, who we called the Wizard of College Baseball, and in fact, Coach Fraser passed away 9 years ago today. Oh. He's the gentleman that put it all together. And without him, Miami baseball would have never been on the map, and college baseball would have never been recognized. It's certainly not as recognized as football or basketball, but Ron Fraser is the guy that put college baseball on the map. And he put together a trifecta of folks who worked Hurricane baseball. Rick Remmert, who now works at the University of Miami in alumni relations. John Ruth, who was our mascot, who joined us from South Carolina, went on to be the Marlins, Billy the Marlin. And the three of us, with the help of Ron Fraser, we put together what would be considered to be the perfect family ballpark. This is the ballpark where you want to bring your kids. The atmosphere is great. The music is great. The food is outstanding. The mascot, the Miami Maniac, interacts with the kids and the fans. And it's just a place that your mom and your dad can drop you off, pick you up 3 hours later, know that your kid is safe at the ballpark, and know that he's going to have a wholesome experience. And We have, as I said, wonderful concessions, Professional Concessions Inc. The milkshakes
The
are known
milkshakes.
worldwide, and people sometimes come to the ballpark just for a milkshake, not even the game. And they could stand in line for an hour to get a milkshake while the game is going on. So it's just the place that where everybody knows your name, to take almost like Cheers, the
Cheers,
song. And it's just a place where everybody sort of feels good. So when the Hurricanes win and it's a beautiful night weather-wise, I don't think there's a place in the country that you could be that you would enjoy yourself more than Mark Light Field, Alex Rodriguez Park.
Sure. I mean, everybody first remembers you from Mark Light Stadium, but you were also the voice at the Orange Bowl. You were the PA announcer from, I'm going to say 1990 to 2007 till the very end. Is that right?
Yeah. In other words, that would be 17 years. I think it was a little bit longer than that.
Oh, yeah?
I think
Okay.
I started at the Orange Bowl in the mid 80s, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
And it sort of all blends together because I've been doing this stuff for so long. So I think that I did 25 plus years of Hurricane football, pretty much the same type of situation for basketball, but baseball is the one that I've done the longest. And when we start the season on February the 18th at Mark Light Field, that will be my 54th season of serving as the stadium voice for Hurricane baseball. So yes, Orange Bowl, and then I continued at Joe Robbie Stadium. After the Orange Bowl was shut down, I did go to Joe Robbie and did several years there as well. And again, did Hurricane basketball when they played at the Knight Center downtown. And then, of course, continued with, Hurricane basketball on campus for several years before I had to make a decision, give some things up, and I started doing Florida Panthers hockey, which was an interesting situation. Yeah.
Well, you when you went over to the Orange Bowl, obviously it's a lot different than doing a game at Mark Light Stadium. You're talking about a 70,000 seat stadium, whereas Mark Light Stadium's more of a more intimate atmosphere. The Orange Bowl is like this giant football stadium, and when you have a big game there, especially a night big game like a Florida State comes to town, it's a madhouse. Do you have a different approach when you do public address announcing? Was there a difference in the way you would deliver?
Well, I can have more fun at Mark Light.
Right.
In other words, I can say some things that wouldn't be appropriate, at the Orange Bowl for Hurricane football. There are a lot more administrators in attendance and university officials in attendance where I need to be careful as to what I say and stick to the scripts that I have in front of me and try to be obviously as professional as I can be. But it was a great run with Hurricane football. We barely ever lost, so it was one of those things where you got up on a Saturday morning and you looked forward to going and announcing a game in front of whether it be 40,000, 50,000, 60,000, 70,000 people, depending upon who the opponent was. And as I said, for several years, we never lost at home. We had the longest winning streak, I want to say 58 consecutive wins at home. Well, that's almost, that's probably close to 10 years worth of home games.
Right.
So losing was not even something that we considered. The only thing we considered was how much we were going to win by. Right. And so that was, a great thing to be involved with. I got to see 5 football national championships and again, be part of that, have rings from those national championships. And so it's something I'm very, very proud of. And to this day, I get so many people that tell me how much they enjoyed listening to me when I did Hurricane football and that they listened and as a kid. And, now they have kids that are participating in athletics and they still hear me, whether it be at the University of Miami or whether it be at a high school event or whether it be at an FIU athletic event where I do some of their sports now, or whether it be at an auction, or whether it be at a golf tournament, or whether it be, working various events. So I'm very lucky that people are very kind and say very nice things about remembering and hearing my voice throughout the years.
Right. I mean, you've called so many different games at different stadiums. I was wondering, is there any particular game or a group of games that stand out to you, whether it be at Marklight, whether it be at the Orange Bowl, whether it be at Joe Robbie, wherever? Is there a certain game or a group of games that stand out to you as announcer?
Well, certainly the Florida Marlins games come to mind because, again, growing up in Brooklyn, I was a Dodger fan. And I never saw the Dodgers play in Brooklyn because they had moved to Los Angeles before I became an avid fan. I never went to Ebbets Field. I never saw the Dodgers play there. But being able to achieve my goal of being the first ever Marlins public address announcer was something that was very important to me. And lo and behold, their first ever game in their inaugural season was against the Dodgers.
Right.
So here I am as the Marlins announcer with the Dodgers in town, with Tommy Lasorda being there, who's somebody who I always loved and had met many, many times. That was probably the most exciting game for me and the most anticipation, along with the 1997 World Series, where I got to announce, Game 7 of the World Series, sitting next to Vin Scully, who was in the next booth, the Dodger play-by-play announcer, and winning a Game 7, with Charles Johnson playing and, a former Hurricane and things like that. So the Marlins games come to mind, but certainly the Miami National Championship over Nebraska. I want to say the first national championship was a game that I remember, and almost every game at the Light, all the regional tournaments and the super regional tournaments, and that would qualify us to go to Omaha, Nebraska, are games that, were very important and filled with drama. And those are the games that certainly that I look back upon fondly. So I would have to say that the Miami Notre Dame battles, those type of games were amazing. Every time we had to play the Irish in the Orange Bowl, the excitement level was off the charts. And as I said, the experiences with the Marlins were wonderful. But I love the Light and I love Hurricane baseball, and so many memories were made in that ballpark.
I think of personally, from my experience, I always think of Game 7 of the '97 World Series, obviously, but some maybe lesser known games that I remember there was a Florida Gator baseball player named Rodney Brewer, who I think he dropped a fly ball that helped Miami get to the College World Series. I remember that for some reason, the name Rodney Brewer.
You are correct. Rodney Brewer made one of the biggest faux pas in college baseball history, in that the Gators were beating us in a decisive regional game. And lo and behold, people, you always knew that rally was going to come, and you always got that feeling at the Light that something special was going to happen, that the magic of the Light, that's what we still refer to. And sure enough, we had a first baseman outfielder whose name was Chris Hart, who came from Hollywood, Florida, and he hit a fly ball to left field. Pretty easy fly ball, nothing difficult about it. Rodney Brewer camped under it, and the ball just clanked off of his glove. And lo and behold, that opened up the gates. We rallied, a dramatic late inning rally, overtook the Gators, and advanced to Omaha. And that is something that Hurricane fans always will remember.
I guess I also remember the Randall Hill 44-yard catch on 3rd and 43, I think it was, and the wide rights with FSU and wide left. Oh my goodness!
I can't. It seems like there was so many wide rights and wide left calls in the Florida State battles that for years, I mean, it seems like no matter what happened to Florida State, and God rest Bobby Bowden, one of the greatest college football coaches ever, but Miami just had their number. And it was great to be part of that. And, wide right and wide left still lives to this day, so special times.
I mean, over the years, you've announced the names of thousands of players, whether it be student athletes or professional players from different sports. Are there certain names that stick in your mind, like not necessarily famous guys, but like your favorite names to say or pronounce?
Well, again, I think we touched upon the ones that, have been remembered.
Right.
But, I mean, again, just through the years of seeing people like, Mike Fiore, he's one of my favorite Hurricanes that ever played at the University of Miami. Neil Heaton, I'm going back to the 80s. Neil Heaton, I consider to be the best college pitcher to ever perform at the University of Miami. Those are Ryan Braun, Pat Burrell. Pat Burrell is without question the greatest hitter in University of Miami baseball history. So getting to watch Bernie Kosar perform and Gino Torretta perform. And these are people that I went on to become friends with, through the years. And so, people like that are people that really stand out in my mind and that I have the fondest memories of.
Now, I think I've talked to you about this off camera before about this, but are there certain players that have come up to you and said, hey, listen, can you pronounce my name this way? Or for example, there was a basketball player years ago from Providence College named Jacek Duda. And I was wondering if you could just touch on that Jacek Duda incident.
Well, we were playing downtown in the hotel, downtown at the Hyatt, I think it was. I don't know if that's what we called that facility. And Providence came in, and Providence, this is when we were in the Big East, and Providence had a very good team. Miami was just average at best. And on this particular day, Miami was giving Providence all that they could handle. And Providence had a very good basketball player, a center, whose name was Jacek Duda. And so I sort of chose his name to accentuate throughout the course of the day. And as it turns out, Jacek Duda picked up his first foul of the day, and I said the foul is on number 56, Providence's Jacek Duda. That's his first foul of the day. And then he picked up a second foul and a third foul, and Miami is continuing to play well. And then he picked up his fourth foul, and I said the foul is on number 56, Providence's Jacek Duda. That is his fourth personal foul. And by now, the student section is sort of, getting on the kid, and they're singing Camptown Races, sing this song, Duda, Duda, and all in good fun, believe me. And as it turns out, a few minutes later, he commits his fifth foul of the day. And I just about get out of my seat, and I said, the foul is on number 56, Jacek Duda. He has been eliminated from today's game. Well, here comes Rick Pitino, who was the coach at Providence at that time. And as you know, Rick Pitino went on and had a very successful career in the NBA and at Louisville and with several schools. And Pitino says to me, he comes over to the scores table and he says, why are you picking on that kid? And I said, Coach, I'm not picking on that kid. I said, I'm just trying to get our crowd involved in the game. Right. And his name seems to be working for us, So he says to me, do you know that his parents are here in the stands today and he's from a foreign country and it sounds like you're making fun of him? And I said, well, that's not the case, Coach. So everybody wanted to know, what did Rick Pitino have to say to me when he came over to the scorer's table? And I just told everyone that Rick Pitino was so thrilled with my announcing style that he asked me if I could join him in his room at the hotel after the game was over, because he wanted to just reminisce about basketball. Needless to say, that's not what happened. He was not happy with, how I was announcing. And that was the extent of it, that he was not happy. Miami, I think, did not win that game against Providence that day, but it seems to be a name that Jacek Duda has lived throughout the years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Final question. And recently, there have been a lot of recent changes at the University of Miami. And one of the issues that have come up is there's an local attorney by the name of John Ruiz, who is making a lot of noise about the possibility of building a new stadium. What would be Tropical Park? What's your opinion on that? And do you think it's a good idea to build a new stadium for Miami football?
First of all, I know John Ruiz.
Mm-hmm.
I know John Ruiz because his sons played for the University of Miami. And I also announced Westminster Christian baseball, which is where his sons played their high school baseball. John Ruiz is a wonderful gentleman who certainly, I think, loves the University of Miami. There's been talk about building stadiums for Hurricane football forever. And this is just the latest round. I hope that he could have some success. Tropical Park would probably be the best place to put a stadium if it's feasible. Miami doesn't have a huge alumni base.
Right.
They're spread out throughout all of South Florida.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably as many people that live in Broward County and North Dade
mm-hmm.
as live in South Dade. But it would be nice to have our own stadium. Mm-hmm. I don't think that I'll be alive to see that stadium come to fruition. I hope that it does. And John Ruiz appears to be ready to put quite a bit of money into athletics. He just made a $2 million donation to Hurricane baseball. His family did, at least. And he certainly is giving out money around town. He's involved with athletes, giving them some money and helping them with the NCAA rules that are now allowed. So I wish him the best. He and his sons have the university, their best in his heart. He has a long road ahead of him to be able to obtain the land and, to get through the government process of being able to build a stadium at Tropical Park is something that I hope it could happen. But again, I wish that I could be alive to see it. Right. But Miami has a very, very good stadium that they play in right mm-hmm. now. Is it bigger than what's needed? Yes. Do we need a 60,000, 65,000 seat stadium? Not for the most part, unless we play Notre Dame or mm-hmm. Florida. But that's the stadium we have. The Orange Bowl is not here anymore. There aren't any great options. And until I see the shovels and the trucks descending upon Tropical Park, until there's an announcement that we're going to have a stadium, I just have to think that right now it's a wish, it's a hope, it's a dream. Mm-hmm. And I hope that, and I wish the Ruiz family the best of luck, and I hope that they can make something happen.
Great. Well, Jay, thank you so much for joining us. You've been an awesome guest, and best of luck on your future endeavors and everything.
Well, thank you. I want the folks to make an effort to come out to Hurricane baseball. Uh-huh. Last year we were restricted because of COVID. We're only allowed to have 600 fans per game. Miami opens up its season on the 18th of February against Towson State. They have 36 home games this year, play a wonderful ACC schedule. Coach Gino Damari and his team are going to have an outstanding season. The ballpark is open. Let's get some nice crowds back to the light, and let's get Hurricane baseball back to the way it used to be when Ron Fraser was in charge.
There you go. Go Canes.
Go Canes. Thank you very much, Jay.
Thank you, Jay. And for Miami's news community newspapers, I'm Jay Rao, and we'll be back again soon with another ghost from the Orange Bowl.